Good evening to the Vice Chancellor, librarian, and all the members who have joined this session. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak as a part of the series of events organized for the celebration of 100 years of the University of Colombo. As a person who graduated from the University of Colombo and who is now working at the University of Colombo, I consider this one of the very important privilege that I received in my life, because this is the university where we studied, this is the university where we work, and we always very happy to contribute, share to the development of the university. And we are very happy to see 100 years of the progress, and we wish more than another 100 years ahead. So having this thing in mind, I thought that I need to speak something that will help us to rethink what we are doing. And since I have heard this topic several times in several places, so then I planned to do this talk based on my experience. I'm not going to talk about the details about the comparison of the digital transformation models which are proposed by the different researchers. I would like to share my experience based on the requirement of the digital transformation in higher education, and what is what will happen in the coming few years, especially during this decade, based on what is done. So having said that, let me go to my topic and the discussion in detail. So I will so we'll talk about the digital transformation. I'll use the short form DT because that will kind of easier for me to refer the fact several times, and we'll define the details. The several different people have described the digital transformation in different ways, but I have selected the one way to describe. So there are three stages, what I call is the 3Ds in the digital transformation. The digital transformation, the third stage, but there are two other stages which I will describe in detail. Practical issues of the digital transformation in higher education institute is a very important thing that we all should know about, because that is something we need to know, and I'll talk about based on my personal experience to share with you. And it is a kind of a journey, and at the same time, this journey is not an easy journey, and where things will change, some sort of what we call paradigm shift. There is a requirement to do that one, and there are benefits to achieve it. So future of the hybrid learning environment, where what we think, the mainly looking at the teaching learning assessment thing, how do we really use the digital transformation in there? The word digital transformation is not a completely new thing. I remember 15 years ago when I was start working on the e-learning, we observe to get the best benefit of the e-learning, it is very important to do the business process re-engineering in the education, especially because the traditional face-to-face education doesn't fit with the e-learning concepts. But there are lots of practices, for example, paradigm shift of the education from teaching to learning and student-centered learning are more suitable for a e-learning context. These days, I mean, during the last few years, the digital transformation is the key term people discuss, and this is discussed in the different organizations in different ways, not only the universities, but higher education sector, it's really very important. So what is the DT in the higher education? It's simply could be described as a digital transformation of a series of a deep and coordinated shifts of three things. First, culture, workforce, and technology. And this, when I say the deep and coordinated shifts, so already culture, workforce, and the technology is around us, but there isn't a big change what we expect in order to establish a new educational and operational models. And the main reason is to transform an institution's business model, strategic directions, and the value proposition. Currently, higher education sector, I think, as you all know, University Act is the kind of the main thing that we really need to adopt, although it is 40 years ago, and we are forced, and still we have to do everything based on it. And that is the way the educational structure is built based on it. Then operational model is based on the something known as a very popular uh, this E-code, establishment code, which defines everything. But at the same time, we get lots of circulars from the University Grant Commission, Ministry, and even the higher authorities. So sometimes I personally felt we receive the magazine, few copies of the magazine in every week. But truly speaking, the most important thing is this educational structure and operational model is defined already, and it's find it very difficult to change as we like it. Because this is a public university, therefore the decision making is always very difficult as to do it. However, if we really want to face the challenges, we need to rethink about what we are doing. So I will discuss those things in detail and will come back to the same definitions within my explanations at the end. Then at the same time, I just wanted to highlight, I mean, there are lots of resources. If you just Google it on the digital transformation in higher education, you will find. And this particular EduCourse is a review, is a very interesting, not only for the digital transformation. They have lots of very interesting things. I'll invite all of you to go through, and you will find lots of those details very useful for the studies. The first thing, why we need this so-called digital transformation in higher education context. The main reason, I mean, whether we like it or not, things are changing. Social, economic, technology, demography. And that changes are something, it happens in every day. So higher education may do many things to take advantage of these changes for the development. Yes, we have to do it. I mean, we prepare the master plan and the strategic plan, then what we call it the SWOT analysis. We look at what are the opportunities, threats. These changes are very important, because if we neglect, sometimes they could become a threat. If we analyze and understand, we can consider them as an opportunities to take things forward. So digital transformation is a kind of a methodology to take the advantages. And it is not only the thing, there are other ways people can do, but this digital transformation could be used if really want to take it. So let's discuss them, some of them. Well, then the other thing comes, what is the benefits? What are the benefits of the digital transformation? Yes, of course, it's very clear. The more resilient, flexible, relevant, as they face an array of increasing difficult challenges in higher education institute. And if you think about the present situation, okay, as I said, the benefits are the things what we get if we materialize the opportunities. If we don't materialize, sometimes they may be there. We may not be able to take the things forward. On the other hand, some of the changes could become a threat to us. So what are if we just looked at the challenges we faced during the last year, the COVID-19 pandemic, it's a big issue. We still hoping things will be better in a few weeks' time. But now I feel it won't be. So we have to change our model, lifestyle, to live with this pandemic situation. Almost more than 1 year, we were suffering, all of us. And uh, that means there is a situation where we really need to change. Fortunately, higher education, I will say, we were able to survive because um, online education was not a new thing for the most of the public universities, especially in the University of Colombo. I think uh, we got many opportunities to learn and practice the online education, what we call the blended education, putting into our traditional classroom, and several projects, including the UNESCO projects, and all the faculties and institute got it. So it was not a new thing. Infrastructure was there. So when this situation came as a kind of a challenge, so UGC and the administration all took some very good steps, promoting, especially the Lanka Academic Research Network, what we know as a LEARN, established the several resources, including the Zoom, and also this free access to the servers. As a result, we were able to do some of the activities within a limited facilities. I think, therefore, there wasn't a lifeline to survive the higher education in the country. And that's that was possible because we had some digital infrastructure in the country. So that's a kind of a very good example what kind of a benefit we face it. Otherwise, this is assumed that it was not the disaster. But still, there are a lot of challenges. Still, we really need to understand those challenges. Then, why we wanted, I mean, the biggest thing, as you all know, this sustainability we were talking about. This is the decade for the sustainability. We really need to work. There are 17 goals the UNESCO has identified. We are working on the different things. But the sustainability of a higher education institute is a critical thing. It's a more important than the development. Sometimes we see lots of development, but if we can't sustain those development, then we will go back to the previous state. That is why it's very important. So this changes, digital transformations, why we really need to consider, one of the thing is sustainability. It will help. So as you will see, the more details coming on. DT, more than doing things online. I mean, sometimes we feel when things are done, even this seminar is done online. And but is that the part of the digital transformation? Truly speaking, no. Delivering courses online blended, yes, we do it as a part of the things to take things forward. We are really happy to do it, and something will do it. Then implementing modern enterprise systems is a kind of a requirement because MIS is very critical to manage the resources. And at the same time, uh, electronic communication. I'm really happy that provide a kind of an email communication, keep the things, I mean, in touch and the lots of things, not the traditional mode, and has made us in a few minutes time, we can communicate with our colleagues and have some meeting and the things can go forward. So, but digital transformation, it's something it's more than that. I mean, all these things uh, using the digital technology could be happened without digital transformation. Yes, as in a way in the current model, business model, where we can expand it, putting the digital technology to do it. But the digital transformation is something different. So that's what I'm going to talk about. It's based on the what I say, a strongly coordinated effort of business model and the values and the strategic direction. The different authors and the different researchers describe the digital transformation in different ways if you look at the literature, but I found this is quite enough and interesting. So I'll select this. These three things is quite good rather than thinking some studies says there are 4 factors, 5 factors, different number of factors, yes, but this 3 is good enough. Then in the context of the digital architecture, Yes, business model, values, and the strategic direction in the context of digital architecture. It's not because you can do this one. You can. We are still coordinating. We are still developing these three things, and we don't want to consider the digital architecture as a key thing. Transformation changes an organization for next generation. Yes. If you look at the pictures, I mean, the beginning of the University of Colombo and the celebration when there was, and I enjoyed, and lots of changes has happened during these 100 years. Yes, that's a good, that's a kind of a transformation, a big transformation. And in the next 100 years, many things will change. And that's the mainly every 10 years creating a generation. That's what I feel in a decade. And now it's even the people belong to the era of 1960s, okay, but 70s and 80s, 90s, and the current students are those who have born after 2000. So they are completely different generations. So the things should change. And then moving so I just wanted to go a little bit detail now to the digital transformation. I call this 3Ds, as I mentioned earlier, three stages. So what is the first stage? Digitization. That means converting objects of analog or physical to digital form. So this is what we do at the beginning. So even the scanning in a document, it's in a kind of converting that to is. So if you really think about for the I mean the advances, the first thing is the digitization that should be happening in the organization. And it may be there are several other things people really need to think about, or not only converting into digital form is not enough. Uh, then the next one is called the digitalization. That is where changing individual institutional operation using a system. So the information systems or the computer-based systems are very important, which are established as in a second level. Uh, in this process. The third one is my topic is called the digital transformations, where we change the business model, people, and the culture, and what we call the technology, people, and culture. That is the where the model is established, and then only we can take the best advantages of all these changes. And sometimes digital infrastructure architecture will be there, but we can't take things forward. Okay, and we face lots of practical difficulties. Let me take okay. This is the kind of the things I just wanted to take. So I took this picture from the EduCourse, and they have given very more detailed explanation how these three stages are combined. So if you looked at what you see is digitized information as the first level in the digitization. And that may, where people may create or produce or then organize. And it's a very important, people need to get ready document object, digital object should be identified. Otherwise, people don't know how to manage it. I mean, still there are lots of issues. We call even the original. Original may be in a printed document. Once you scan it, we call it something like in a photocopy. It is not the original. So how do you make a scan version as an original? Then there should be a policy. And where do you keep the original printed document? So how do you treat it? Then, so there is should be some sort of or information should be organized based on some structure. Uh, Digitalizations is in a kind of an where we think about the automate the process. Otherwise, having things in digital form is not enough. Then we definitely need a kind of a system. And that is also, we need to fine tune them to streamline the processes, modifying the processes sometimes, and also looking at the other things. So this is what we do. So if you look at the whole, everywhere in the whole organization structure, sometimes it will be on the stage level, or sometimes it may be on the stage two. So it may vary from place to place, system to systems, these two things. But however, if we really wanted to move forward, we need to think about the core system, what we call the business model and the surrounding thing, and transform the institution. That's what we expected in the digital transformation. So we cannot jump to the third level. We need to pass the first and second level. That is very, very important. But uh, we may enjoy it and we may think we are quite okay on the level 1 or level 2. The level 2 is what we really wanted to come, but that's not enough. There is a limitation. So that is what I'm really wanted to discuss and show you the things. So I'll take a couple of examples. Signing in an e-document. This is something I was having a very tough time during the last few months, yeah, especially because I wanted to make this, especially during the COVID period, rather than working with a digital document. Signing in a document means usually we put our signature, and it's a printed copy, and the several people. Sometimes on an e-signature, we scan and produce the document and they place the e-signature. But the issue is then someone could say, someone can easily uh, created a bogus document, putting my signature on that document. So how do you prevent it? So to do that one, we really need a kind of a system to manage the electronic documents and to manage the workflow. So there are lots of systems for that one. Even software is available, for example, Adobe Acrobat, and they also have web-based systems. And also you can use these documents within some local systems where the Google Drive, and there are lots of systems which you can buy and use for this purpose. But really, what do you mean by the level 3, the digital transformation is where we working environment of accepting the digital signature and the digital document. That is still not there. Sometimes it's beyond our control because some documents, e-signature doesn't work. I have to put my real signature, and even especially the documents which I have to send to the bank on behalf of the UCSC. And those things are really uh, still we don't have a framework where we can accept. So I hope that one day that will comes. It's beyond our control, but we really need, even within the organization, there are still some of the documents are really need to converted. And these days we were talking about this work from home, and lots of time I heard from the administration, the main problem is they don't have the required documents. The file is in the office. I mean, the scanners were there, people didn't have a practice of scanning and creeping extra document, extra copy, electronic copy of the document. And also there was no system, but at least it is time for people to think about. I taken another example, so to show you how these three things works. The library, okay, and books, the traditional books, and now we have e-books, and the traditional books also we can scan to some extent, not full book, and it's not allowed, and under the fair use policy. But then we usually built on library information systems, and where the students can search and find and locate and borrow the books, and also reserve the books in advance and things like that. Digital library systems helps us to manage the uh, books for the electronic version of the books, and even our own dissertation and theses, and allow the people, and even the main library as well as our UCSC also have several systems like that. However, what's the stage 3? Stage 3, hybrid library. So this is an assignment for the library to think about in the next 100 years. How do we really want it to take things forward? It's not just the digital library systems or ebooks. What is the important thing? We really need a new business model for the library. And that's more than the technology. I mean, the people may think about hybrid means physical and digital integration. Yes, of course, should be there, where the people even physically comes to there, or remotely they can access the materials, and there are lots of interesting applications. So, augmented reality applications are there. For example, I have seen some kind of things that people read the books in the foreign languages using some of the augmented reality applications, where they convert or translate the content of the book immediately to the relevant one if they use the different the electronic devices. So those are everything's come under the stage 2, but the important thing, what is the new business model? and how do you really expand this business model, not only the people who are in the sometimes in the library, but taking the things further advanced. Expectation of the digital transformation is, as I mentioned, is a new business model based on the digital architecture. So in that case, uh, we really need to keep in mind our main stakeholder, that is our students. So whatever the new model, new things we proposed, it's very important to improve the students' outcomes. Okay, the benefit should go to the students, in other words. Effective teaching and learning methods should bring it. Collaborative, effective culture for research and development. Those are some of the objectives that we really need to consider seriously when we are proposing the new business model. So this requires an agile, flexible management to achieve the strategic aims and the goals efficiently. Yes, if we are most of the time, we have lots of limitations. We can't take and do lots of things. Yes, that's natural. But that should not prevent us doing something good thing for the future and for the further development. So more things I'll discuss in the other slides. So I wanted to talk a little bit about three things which I mentioned: the culture, workforce, and the technology. So cultural change, what we really expect in the cultural change. Generally, it's a working or operating culture in the decision making or collaboration and the communication. So this must be changed more effectively. I'm personally very happy now. Email communication has become in the University of Colombo as one of the key mode of the communication, especially during this period. Thanking to the Madam Vice Chancellor. I mean, sometimes she sends the messages to go to the every people. I mean, all the staff, or sometimes all the staff and students. These things keep a very close community is there. So that those are the kind of a shift that we really need to use it, and that will uh, resolve sometimes the problems, sometimes actually change the working culture. Practices and the management need to change. So that is the thing, and sometimes we may observe lots of difficulties, but always we need to think about the how do we really change to take the maximum benefit. So in that case, increasing agility and flexibility, it's very important, what we call the lightweight approaches. Even this is a very famous term, even the software industry. Sometimes you may have heard some of the uh, agile software development, what we call the lightweight approach. Our traditional model is a heavyweight approach. Always we need a document. Always we expect a kind of a documentation or the minute or confirm minutes to take the decision. And if we really want to take a decision, don't wait for the confirmed decision. I mean, if our intentions are quite okay, we can start working on. But it doesn't mean that we should not neglect the existing protocols and the things. We can work around them. We can get the things approved officially, but there are other things to do. So these are some of the new practices that what we really need, and the people really need to motivate for that one. So materialize the opportunities to achieve the goals collectively. So it's a very difficult, I mean, to do things alone. Always we need to work together. And most of the time, the biggest issue in this culture is what we call the um, uh, divisional culture we have, silos culture we have. It's where, unfortunately, the faculty-wise, institutes-wise, we have a divisions. Even within the faculty, you have a department-level divisions. Even within the department, there are sometimes many divisions. So these are some of the things which are affecting the working culture and why we can't. But really, if we really wanted to move forward, we have to work in that way. So in that case, leadership and collaboration is very important. Leadership is important, but leaders can't do things alone. Others need to collaborate. And activities across the faculties, departments, units are very, very important. Some of the things really promote. I think it's Colombo University also have a very good example. Other universities may have the IT committees, this blended learning committee. They may be within the faculty level, maybe university level and even the UGC level also, they have similar committees. So the main reason is to create an environment for collaborate. Because if we really wanted to move forward, let's keep it in mind, one party cannot do it. And even a one party moves forward, if others are not to that level, that development doesn't make any sense. So strong leadership at the divisional levels are very, very critical. Sometimes when things goes wrong, it's natural the top leadership being criticized, and the people think that everything is fails because of the top leadership. But my personal feeling, the major role is played by this divisional level leadership. And it's sad in that we are not in that culture where people, rather than collaborate, people keep on fighting. People keep on fighting the things. And one simple example, I have seen this WhatsApp group. I asked even in the UCSE, in the every division, to keep on a WhatsApp group to keep in touch with the people. And then I see some of the very good collaborations that could be happen among the people. And hope this will be the same in everywhere, and that's bring the people. So in that case, the divisional head plays in a very important role. If he's in a positive, he's working hard and do it. So one person can't take the all. One person cannot do it. Even the top leadership is a very important, need to be supportive, understand, but he or she, whether it is in a university, whether it is in a country, can't do anything alone. Others need to work together. So adopt new digital strategies, architecture, technologies. Okay, it's in a very, very important in that thing. And collect the data set using the Google form is a good example. I have seen the lots of people now are doing, but there are many other ways where people need to do it, rather than waiting and sending email asking one person to collect and fill the form and send and enter them into the form. That was you observed in a few years ago, but now things have changed. In a uh, few days or few hours time, you can collect a big set of data of all the people. So this cultural shift, where we really need to think about the strategy and the process, and where uh, we alternative business funding models is very, very important. Now, in our university also thinking about providing interest-free loan for the computer students and staff. I'm very really wanted to promote this, giving an interest-free loan for the staff. And especially the not only the academic staff usually get the and administrative get the official laptops, but what about the other people? It's a very important. And also the students also need to get, and the government level, the ministry level have started initiatives we really need. And at the same time, the people need also some sort of a commitment. And I have seen sometimes people start fighting, asking the free things. That is not sustainable, because if you really want to be a part of things, you need to bring your equipments. If the people don't have equipments, we need a framework to support them to get it. So priority for the investments in technology is very important. That's also a key things, because it's not visible, it's intangible. And linking these KPIs for online learning with an IT investments is a very important thing if we can really do that one. So having the uh, standing committees for the IT and online education at the university level, at the UGC or at the department levels, also you can have it at faculty level. That's important. So it's not only the hardware, the software, it's very important. And I mean, I'm really happy that university, as we took a very, very important decision to buy the Turnitin, because those software is very, very important for the progress. And data and analytics, as we all know, I mean, to do things, we need the data. Decision should be based on the information and the data. But however, the problem is when the data and the information is not available, we are forced to take the decision based on our feeling and assumptions. And then uh, it is difficult to criticize the people, because we don't have that cultural shifts to collect the data. And also the collecting the data also have many difficulties. Institutional wide data governance policy is very important. And this daily attendance is a critical thing for the everything, even the salaries are paid, even for the students, their attendance we consider. But now, today, it has become a kind of an issue. Access statistics of the students. Earlier, it was an attendance sheets, but now we consider the different ways of collecting the things. And at the same time, we really need to think about if we really want to change this cultural shift, artificial intelligence techniques for automation. It's something, if we really wanted to move forward, we need to think about, find, there are so many applications, ways it could be. One example, as I given here, learn analytics for predicting student performance before the online exam. We are very serious and we are discussing this topic. I mean, the cheating in the online exams, yes. But if you know the person, if the student's profile is visible, and there are very interesting application I have seen, artificial intelligence based, where the continuous assessment information could be used to predict the performance of the students and based on the past data. And then if there is an exception, people could do a kind of a special validation. Work shifts in the digital transformation, that is the most critical. I mean, if I say managing the human resource to implement the digital transformation is the most difficult things. I mean, because HRM is a tough thing, and materialize the opportunities depends on the people around us. Develop the competencies and the new skills in the digital process is very, I have seen this is the biggest obstacle we see. People don't know. There are few people who know, the majority, even if they know it, they are not very good in applying those things. And at the same time, we need to understand the traditional culture of the working at office or faculty is gone now. When I go to even the UCSC, even the yesterday, lecture halls are empty. But I know the lectures are going according to the timetable. Then all the structures now more than 1 year. Offices are empty, but people do, even not in that earlier stage to some extent. And I remember the Vice Chancellor Madam mentioned sometimes the biggest cost in the day is the HR cost. Yes, I mean, as in a higher education institutes, that is the biggest cost. But open question, do we take the maximum benefit out of it? Sometimes we can't put a blame to the people. The main problem, I personally feel, our business model is traditional and it is not changed. If we don't change it, then it's a very difficult to take the things forward to address the issue. And then some other things, when we do this, the new shift comes on, we have to keep in mind new jobs will come. So new, at the same time, some jobs may go, as you can see here. These things like lab attendance, hall attendance, all things may go off in the more technology if we can put into the practice. Automation and advanced technologies increase the productivity and reduce the cost and the overhead. So we really need to think in from that point of view. Sometimes we put the technology, sometimes we do lots of things, but we don't take the benefit out. Cloud-based services are very important. Google Gmail is something there, but at the same time, we also need to think carefully, how do we materialize these things? Because anytime the Google could change their policy of the service. IoT and the big data is not in research, they are in practice, and we really need good put into the lots of the operations now. Change the roles in the workshops, it's something we really need to think. The teachers do not want to teach in the traditional way. Teachers facilitate the students based on the data analytics. It's not on the statistics, it's a more than data analytics is where you put in artificial intelligence techniques and where you can easily comes with what we call the personalized teaching. And the teaching and the learning analytics for the academic management is in a very, very critical for the future success. And we know all these students, and then we can really manage them. Automated student feedback and analysis and the courses. Yes, it's not like analyzing the students' given feedback. The feedback could be collected directly and indirectly in a online learning environment. Opportunities, collaboration, and the cost of the R&D. Those things could be significantly change and do it. I mean, one of the important thing I feel it in the future is this research data management. Several initiatives have been taken, but I think there are a lot has to be done. Sometimes people don't like to share the data due to several reasons. Sometimes the data is unethical, therefore they don't like to share it. That's the another reasons. But if we can really share those things, the outcome of the research will be much more, and more collaborative things could happen in the future. Technology shift, yes, that's also very critical, not only putting the technology into work, but as we have to keep in mind, the lifetime of IT is a very short, like our life, okay? So in that case, adopt an innovative practices to materialize the benefits is a very critical. And strategic implementation and change and adopt new things are very, very important. So uh, these things, I mean, sometimes I have seen lots of IT investments are there. People take years to start using them. Then it's too old and the people can't use it. So IT is no more longer an asset, or it's known as an intangible asset. It's a service. So lots of things comes as a service. So people should be able to quickly get it and start using this service. Sourcing and scaling, it's a very, very important thing, because sometimes some services we don't need, then there are things. The good example is which we are struggling these days, the load on the Zoom servers at the LAN. Okay, sometimes it's in the goes above the whatever the level, and somewhere in the midnight we are not using it, and then just doubling that resources in a one solution. But again, then idling time will be much more at the night time. Reduce the cost of a commodity services is in a very, very important. Google services, internet through learn, it's also a kind of way. Those are some of the techniques we really need to come. And in the future, having our own cloud-based services at the university level, as well as in a learn level, at the national levels, we really need to start thinking, because should not depend on the international online resources, because that's again will have lots of issues. Sometimes the privacy violations could also be happen, as you know. Technology management is a critical things. Yes, we really need to rethink. Right now we are managing, but biggest challenge to obtain the value for money. Okay, we have it, and but what is the outcome? How much people have used? We need to continuously evaluate and then try to improve that one. So managing intangible assets is harder. We usually do this what we call at the end of the board of surveys, to count whether things are in place. Meaningless activity, truly speaking. What we need, we never check whether how much have we used, and what is the things. I think it's uh, I have seen the vice chancellor and many meetings. We talk about the space audit. I mean, we have lots of space, but we are, to what extent we are using it. I think IoT solution can be easily put if people can't collect the data. Enterprise architecture, aligning the services of the business needs in higher education institutes. We really need to come with those things. And information and the cybersecurity will be critical in all the operations in the future. Downtime of a learning management system is critical. I mean, even in a few minutes, if it's happened, I mean, we can't sleep. And this is really critical. But at the same time, anything could be happen. Any server could be hacked, any server could go up, go down, the hardware, software fall. So then we really need to think about how we really face these things. So technology management means not only the just manage to use. I mean, we also need to risk analysis is also a critical matter that people really need to think about. So personalization and emerging technologies are very, very important. It's coming customization of the service for the individual requirements. That is where the other services we don't get it. But then put these emerging technologies into practice, we really need. They are not the topics for the research. They are something that we can start using. Extended reality, which is an integration of the virtual reality plus augmented reality, and lots of interesting applications. Teaching and learning, not necessary to be in a academic, I mean the computing faculties, even the other faculties can start. Robotics, blockchain, and the blockchain is a good topic. Even the management faculties, this is a very important technology because the smart contracts in the future, it's based on the something called blockchain. So the students need to learn these things. IoT is the same thing. And what I need to summarize: adopt innovative practices and the create digital environments that provide unprecedented agility and the flexibility. So this is the future expectation. But then, how do we do it? Methodology for digital transformation. Transformation is not just changing things. We'll have to first understand it's a tough thing, the upside down, sometimes a paradigm shift. So hard thing. So where the transform the business model, where the workforce, culture, technology, we have to collectively think about, and then organize the uh, organize the structure, organization and structure and the entities, okay, across them, not only one place. I mean, not only the UCSC, I mean, all the faculties need to develop, applying the technology, uh, and then only we can achieve what we really expect. Then, sorry, approach could be both, that's what I believe, top down and bottom up. And sometimes we expect someone to come and ask us to do it. Well, that may happen at one day, but bottom-up approaches are also very strong. We need to combine them together and motivate it. So this is something just wanted to show in a graph I taken from EduCourse. It's where this digital transformation, our main target is the student community, and that the benefit goes to the students. And then we really need to think about the way how to do it. So I just invite you, the later you can research and do it, and lots of interesting stuff is available. And at the same time, the open question is, are we ready? Yes, it is a journey, not a destination. So we are ready or not. We need to do a self-evaluation and find out. And sometimes we may feel we have started. It's something like that. I mean, all of you may have an experience when you are in a train. If there is another train going on the other track, and we feel the train where we are is also moving. In fact, sometimes not, because if others are changing, so the world things are changing, then we feel we are also changing, we are also moving forward. And truly speaking, not. So we have to really find out whether we are moving or whether we are just looking at the moving things. And continuous evaluation, prepare the environment, workforce, culture, technology, all these things are very tough. Checklist for the journey, yes, of course, you can find and try out, but more than that, what is most important, strong level of digitalization in all the units is very important, because we need to come to the level 2 in order to move to the level thing. But we need to start think about journey and the destination. Yes, as I said, the destination will be the new business model with the new values. Multiple paths for the journey is possible, yes, and the different units, different department, faculties may choose a different one, but the strong coordination is needed, since we all need to meet or reach to the same destination. Collaboration in that case is a very, very critical. Share and learn, collective experience, and we need to build that culture, build the better models and the strong capabilities among us. And I just take my view on the digital transformation on the teaching. So the first thing, digitalization, uh, digitizations were the electronic materials for the teaching. I mean, earlier I remember some people don't like to give electronic, even a PDF, and they think the students will start misusing it. I mean, I had to battle. I mean, this is around 2005, 2006. Even at the UCSC, some people didn't like to do given a PDF document. And at one stage, I put in a kind of, and I was able to convince at that time uh, the directors that we need to stop printing documents, and that's a kind of a common practice today. Digitalization is the where we get support from them, support for the LMS to teaching and other tools. So e-teaching is today is practicing to some extent, but then what is the digital transformation in teaching? So that means simply we need a new model. So the new model, something may be a different way. These are my thoughts. Of course, some of the things are debatable. You may not agree. I respect, but on-demand teaching is the what we really need. I mean, our traditional model of the teaching, it's we teach when we are ready. No, if the teachers should be able to teach and no need to, I mean, when the students won't come. So how do you do this one? If you look at in the many countries come with this MOOC culture in teaching. So it's not only teaching the students in our courses, even the teaching the public. The people really need to come. That's a kind of a new model where uh, some other things may also come in that context. The freedom in selecting the teacher and the course. I mean, this freedom is not in this our education. We talk about the freedom in the education, but the students don't have any freedom in teaching. And other my the suggestion in the hybrid kind of a teaching environment, even in the future, pay as you teach, not because of your designation. I mean, this is the kind of a model where has become the huge issue. These things, I don't know when may or may not happen. That's a different things, but this is the kind of things that I think in the future things should be changes in this way. The context of the learning, I think it's the electronic materials for the learning students will use. I mean, even if they don't, even they Google it and find the lots of better material than what the teacher is sharing. So virtual environments, the LMS and the many systems come. So we enjoyed the lots of things. But what about the new model, what we call the hybrid learning model for the students' point of view? Independent of the location. Yes, of course, whether they come here, whether they go there. I mean, the biggest issue, even the foreign students, if you really want to take, and what you can see, all the in the foreign universities, I mean, that without going there, now they allow the students to register and follow and get the degree. Yes. So then we also need to go to that model. On-demand learning. I mean, the students have a right to do it, and when they really want. Still, someone in the first year can't take the course in the third year. But there are some different students, different people. The learning is where the students need the freedom. So if we really want to bring the benefit, so the on-demand learning will be quite a different new culture where we really need to promote. Flexibility in selecting and following the courses. So that freedom is not there, but the students, and even not only the student may be registered at the University of Colombo, but if the student wants find in a better course, can follow that course in another university, but the credits could be transferred. Even it may be a Coursera courses or some other courses which is unacceptable. So freedom in learning is really need to upgrade. It's not going through the traditional culture. So most of the time, if the framework could be built, because the what we learn today or what we teach today is may not be valid or applicable in a few years times. Assessment, the most critical things people talk about. Now, electronic version of the examination question materials, earlier it was not available. Sometimes some teachers don't like to share it. Now we share it and put it into the LMS and available. And also in some courses, we were able to put even not only the question, even the answers. But then the assessment systems is something still we are struggling. Yes, but they are coming on and start working. It's possible, but at the same time there are issues, practical things, lots of things, cheating, and real issues comes. But then what comes on the model for assessment? Okay, this is the kind of a view that I have it. On demand assessment, I mean, always the assessment is something where uh, we decide, not the student decides. If the student is ready, he should be able to get the assessment. And at the same time, if the student fails, he has enough freedom to request for a reassessment. And that's kind of the thing should be there. This concept of open assessment, I mean, I have discussed in some other forums in several times. Suppose if you have let's say 1,000 MCQ question, which you are going to do the assessment, you publish them to all the 1,000 questions to the students and ask students to study them. But your pass mark is an 85. Okay, they have to with the negative marking, let's assume it. And if they can get an 85, because they know the question in advance, they do it. And kind of a thing. There was several interesting experiments. Micro assessments is something is promoted in many places, which is not in our culture, where the badges people learn, and even for the assignment. E-portfolio based validations are very, very, portfolio is not a new concept, but e-portfolio is in a very creatively can put it. And students could have an e-portfolio address where he can put into his CV, and it will be more powerful than the traditional transcript. So yes, we need to reinvent new pedagogies for the assessments. That is in a continuous process, depends on the culture. So let me summarize which I talked about. So what the main thing I say, this technology, culture and workforce should be strong coordination is required. It's coordination sometimes is there within the particular segment, but what I'm meaning about the together we really need to think about, okay, technology, culture and the workforce. And then the new environment is the business model, operation, values, education. So kind of a business model. So I hope the next University Act will help us to have our own new business model. I don't know. But operations is something that we develop on top of that. And then we define our new value chains, where our new education structure could be built, and that will be something. So this the uh, transformation will happen. So in that case, the first thing, innovative leadership at all levels. It's not one person is not possible. We need to have a collectively work together in there, what you see, the collaboration across entities. So this is the something we really need to come. So the future, yes, what I see. This is the lesson I learned from Professor Marnaik. Don't wait for opportunities. Okay, digital transformation. We should not wait for it to happen. We may be in the level 1, level 2, but we really need to start working on. We really need to even start thinking about how we bring this new business model. Don't wait until everything is perfect. Yes, I mean I had some lots of issues. One small thing, I mean, many years ago, it was 2005, I think, I was given an assignment to develop an e-learning material. I think at the UCSC under the National E-Learning Center project, we were developing using lots of tools, but internet access at that time was very poor in the country. The one day I was complaining about the process, what we were doing, and it was Professor Samarnaik who listened to my talk about this problem of internet access and the e-learning material. He told me, I have asked you to build a car, not a road. You don't want to worry about roads. You are given the task of building the cars. One day someone will build a road. At that day, if you have a car, you can drive it. Anyway, I didn't understand, and I really got to know. I realized the value of that statement after 1 decade. Yes, so everything should not wait for all the problems uh, resolved, and we can start now. Start the journey of digital transformation, new business model based on the digital infrastructure. So if we think about in a motivated way, a future is a today. Yes, critical for the sustainability and the survival of the higher education institute. So I hope, especially this is something we really need to think about at the 100 years, and need to educate all the stakeholders in there. It's what's very, very important, because if you look at, this is something I have seen, a very interesting diagram. Whenever we propose, there are supportive group as well as an opponent group. And also there is a majority sleeping group who never say anything, who just don't oppose, don't support. And therefore you can see the same thing. I mean, I have seen the same thing with respect to the online examination context, but the same thing will come in the digital transformation. So finally, higher education in 2022, this decade in 30. But this is the decade of uncertainty. Yes. And that was, I mean, we had only 1 and 2 months in the 2020. And after that, we lived there. COVID-19 has challenged the traditional model in higher education, as you can see. And that's kind of a challenge for us, which has forced us to think about the sustainability. And the sustainability depends on the extent of the change in the business model of higher education. And the best time to adopt the digital transformation in higher education institute is the time. I think we really need to, even though we live in a very unfortunate time period, I mean, all the dark clouds, we see a silver line like that. Uh, there are many opportunities where we really need to think about. So that is the message I wanted to share and also to communicate. I'm happy to discuss, answer any question. So floor is open to all of you.
Thank you, Professor Hewagamage, for your wonderful presentation on digital transformation in higher education. I hope everyone would have understood the nuances and the nexus between transforming our education system into the future realities. Like in the past, we had frictions between baby boomers and Generation X and whatnot. Those days, those frictions were called digital divide, where one faction of group had luxuries of the internet and other devices, where the other majority of the faction did not have all these resources. Similar paradigm shift is happening because of this unprecedented COVID pandemic issues. And we are compelled, more or less compelled to embrace all these changes, like it or not, or we have the resources or not. We have to embrace and take all these things without espousing. So these are my understanding from Professor Hewagamage, and the floor is open to question and answer. Dear participants, for you to ask.
Those who can also put in a chat box can put the questions if you want. So I am happy to answer for them. Yes, no problem.
Since nobody is making any sound, let me jump into the scenes, Professor.
Yeah.
Like I said, earlier they had these digital divide issues where educators and curriculum developers put their efforts into making them relevant to the concurrent societies.
Mm-hmm.
These times, these things, we I don't know how far these generation we are having now, baby boomers, Generation X, millennials. Perhaps millennials would be convenient or comfortable with digital online educational platforms.
Yeah.
And especially these schools are conducting their classes on Zoom, and children are acclimatized to that kind of environment. So when they get into the university, there won't be any transitional period. I would like to know about espousing. Mostly, we are following the Western, shortly known as weird, all in uppercase WEIRD. Western educated, industrialized, rich and democratic countries models in developing worlds or socialist world. So these things, like, we have to espouse somebody's model, and that's what we have been doing, ever since British reign. So what am I interested in is, Professor, how far these things would be, are we still climbing up the clouds, or is it, our thing already? I don't know
Yeah.
whether it's been deep rooted in our educational system, or still are we espousing or trying to be smart in Western system. Thank you, Professor.
Yeah, I mean, even if you look at education system, we are just following the kind of a practice given by some other people. I mean, the Western the practices in education. And I remember in the 10 years ago when I went for a sabbatical in Europe, I observed even the UK, the education model is quite different, even though we are practicing it. And what has happened? They started with something, but they start changing. But we didn't want it to change. I'm thinking that has created a big issue. I mean, then it is challenging our transformation. At the same time, uh, when it comes to this digital transformation, it's a very important. I mean, we need to study what is really happening in the other places, but when we wanted to practice something or implement something, we need to customize it according to our requirement. So it may be at the national level, it may be at the university level, it may be at the faculty or the department or whatever the units level. Uh, if the people have a very good understanding, then probably the customization is very important. It's an easier in the digital architecture level. It's not like the other things, even that suits for the requirement. So very important. At the same time, the services, we depend on the lots of things in the international services. Yes, that's good. What we call the public open clouds, but it's a very important to build our own services where if something goes wrong, we should not depend totally on them. So those kind of thing. Yes. There are several few questions.
Yeah, Madam
Yeah, so
Vice Chancellor
Vice
asked.
Chancellor Madam's thing is models in the current context of the traditional AR/FR systems. Yes, I think that is the biggest obstacle what I see in the public universities. I think that's if the University Act we live within a 40 years ago. I mean, if it is now, I heard that and the new one has been drafted. Uh, but it's a very important the freedom freedom should be given for universities where they can come with the model. I mean, then only we can think about facing for the future. I mean, until that the freedom is given, it's a very difficult because we always have to follow it. But the most of the time I see the biggest challenge, people say you are depending on the public money. Okay, therefore you have to follow the instructions of the financial regulation or administrative regulation. So in that case, I think it's the time has come to change the model in the free education system. Because if we try to practice the free education system as it is what we started in many years ago, this is not going to be sustainable. The simple example where this kind of scholarship or loan schemes could be granted, and the universities really need to market their courses to get the students. And if they can't get it, then of course they will have a problem of getting the adequate funds for the sustainability. So uh, kind of a thing, because the sometimes the present model has many restrictions for the development. Yes, we really need to understand. There are few other questions. Can you explain how we can make the policies for education transformation? Well, policies for the education transformation, uh, my suggestion is it should be started at the university level. The top-down or bottom-up approach I suggested, I mean, always could be good practices, but the policies should be developed uh, by the respective the universities, maybe respective faculties, then the proper approval should be obtained. So bringing a one policy for all the concepts, I don't think it will work it out. Next question, for the sustainability of all these business model, I believe that to establish this
Excuse
model,
me,
how human values can
excuse
be.
me, Dr. Hevagama, Professor
Yes,
Hevagama.
yes.
That question is gone wrong, but my question is how human values support sustain these business models.
Human values, yes. Human values we really need to think about. The main thing, as you remember, the digital transformations, the main stakeholder is our students. That's we really need to think about. I mean, whatever the new model when we are proposing, we really need to think about the values. I mean, the benefits should goes to the students, teachers, and also, I mean, that is where we really need to. So that's just the values that we really need to define in our model, and based on it. Uh, then the next question is, my problem is how to overcome the psychological and the visual issues faced by the children when they are learning by sitting in the front of the digitized equipment. Yeah, so what is really happening now, we are practicing the traditional education, the face-to-face teaching and learning practices using the digital equipment. So then we face the bad consequences, what you see. I mean, that's what I always say. We should not, uh, we are using the online delivery type of an education. That is not but real online education where we really need to have a new pedagogy, which will not disturb. I mean, they don't have a kind of teaching sessions after every 20 minutes, at least I have a little break and give some work and given a kind of a thing. So, and also the people could practice easily different things. Then about my question is how human values support sustain this business model, as I said it, yeah. For the sustainability of all this business model, I believe that to establish this model, how human values can be supportive and must be established, yes. Digitization and digitalization uh, can be done, but there are barriers for the digital transformation as information facilitators. Yes, it's not an easy thing, but we really need to start thinking about it because the future depends on the digital transformation. I think it's changing isn't hard, but I'm not talking about the changing what we just do it. It's in a radical change. It's in a really hard. So what is this things is happen? Cognitive and effective learning, not teaching, is what we really need to shift focus, isn't it? Yes, uh, that is very, very true and important. Yes, both factors are really very important. And uh, traditional, the teaching, I mean, the very important thing in the digital architecture, I have seen even the personalized teaching could be easily practiced. Sometimes some teachers are worried about the number of students in the class. Yes, but if you can have a completely different model, this teacher-student relationship could be established in a different way. Um, we don't want to repeat the same thing again and again, but we can be more productive. We can be more facilitators in the teaching learning context.
If there is any more questions, Ramanan, can you ask from the participants? There is any more questions?
Yeah. Does anyone have any questions for Professor Hevagamage? Yes, Professor, we are interested, I mean, these days we are focusing on problem-based education and student-centered learning. I have some concerns regarding student-centered learning. It's like doctors cannot treat patients based on patients' requirements or demands. Likewise, there might be, relevance to this student-centered learning. Maybe this might be going away when everybody is learned, everybody is digitally competent in future. Otherwise, these days, students are like, groping blinds groping the elephant. So if teachers depend on such students, quote unquote, then how can this student-centered learning in digital transformation would be of any beneficial? And at the same time, on-demand learning, on-demand assessment, I'm concerned about all these factors. But at the same time, I support pay as you teach. Of course, it's a kind of rebellion proposal. Might put the proposer in a
Could create a
great,
trade union action, I know.
yeah. Yes, sir. Yeah.
I mean, the first thing, I think the student-centered learning, we really need to understand what is student-centered learning. It's not like the creating the learning according to the student requirement.
Yes.
I mean, where we really need to develop the learning context, considering the students' capabilities, okay? And because most of the time, what happens, the student fails to learn. It's because of the context. It doesn't fit to the students for that one. So it's one of the very important responsibility on the teacher to create, to remove this barrier, the barrier of learning. And it may be sometimes the small things, sometimes it's the critical things, because we all know uh, uh, when it comes to the individuals, it's vary from one person to another person. So in theory, I mean, it's a very important, but even as you just took an example in a case of the doctors and the patient, but what is the most important thing? Doctors have to treat according to the diseases or the problems this patient has. But at the same time, doctors need to concern about the patient. If they don't consider the patient, if they consider only the disease, they cannot treat the patient. I mean, this is the kind of the thing. All the good things we really need to think from their point of view. If we really wanted to see the benefit reaching to the other end, so always teachers knows this stuff, and they wanted to make the students to learn, but then there is a barrier if the teacher don't consider from the student's point of view. So this is the kind of the thing that comes. Well, things like the online, on-demand, learning on-demand, teaching, these are the kind of the best, important thing, completely new. But if you look at the Coursera course, anybody can register and start learning even today, and the course is there, and the context is there. The students will have to do some basic activities, start to listen, and he has to do the assignments, and when becomes active, the respective TA will become active. And at the same time, there are lots of online, what we call the bots, or the learning bots are there, who can interact with the students and guide and help. And real TAs could also can come. Lots of interesting things is happening. So I think we need to have some experience. I mean, the teachers need to become learners now in this context. Then some of the things people will start learn, and it will be very interesting.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Like you said, there are notions regarding student-centered learning. Like, we cannot rely on students' demands,
Yeah.
but instead we have to employ formative assessments where we get the feedback from students and design the curricula accordingly. And at the same time, let me go to any other questions. No.
There are a few questions on the chat box, so I just like to say,
Sure.
this is sometimes not relevant for the session, but I would like to know there is any health effects from the Wi-Fi signals. Want to know the situation about the rays coming from the laptops, phones, desktop monitors as well. Truly speaking, this is a very open question. Yes, because when you work within a technology, there are some concerns, especially uh, whether it will affect the health. I mean, there are lots of stories at the same time what the international standards are there, and especially the people who are making those equipment should follow the international standards. uh, we can't 100% say no, but no one knows about these things 100%, and sometimes there could be, sometimes not. But now we have lots of other issues more than the Wi-Fi signal and the electronic beams. Even the water what we drink, we don't know nothing. And even the vegetable what we eat, we
Yeah.
know nothing about them. So personally speaking, sometimes I'm worried about them more than the signals which are around, because how many FM channels are there? Can we control how many TV channels are there? So all these things, better to not to think some of the problems. Yes. What kind of a support students can achieve for their development of the skills, especially for nursing as a practice-based profession? Uh, the development of the skills, especially for the nursing as a practice-based profession. Yeah, I think this skill development is very challenging. Now, suppose if I take an example, common example, if we wanted to teach someone how to drive a car, if we show him few videos of how to drive a car, can this person learn how to drive the car? Of course, no. But the person could use that. I mean, the several videos could be put it into there, and can really put into the kind of can prepare what we call we can prepare the learner to learn the basic skill thing. Some of the things, I mean, we should not expect the online environment will be there 100% to solve all of them, but at least some of the stuff can be used to prepare the learners to learn the skills in the fast way. I have seen many such an example where the people have some chemistry practicals preparing the learners to do it. And when I was in the Sweden, I mean, there was a very interesting project. Uh, I mean, it's in a vehicle with an augmented reality, um, where they in the Stockholm University they experimented, where you have a kind of environment to train someone to drive a vehicle. So it's in something like in a very, you will really get in a real feeling of the car. You have to accelerate, you have to brake, and everything is prepared it. It's in a kind of a virtual environment. And that's in the training environment, they artificially create an accidents and give you an opportunity to escape it. And I felt that you can't get in a real world at all. I mean, how to get in the real car practice. So those things are some of the things could be done electronically where you can't in the skill development. Same thing comes with the medicine as well as the nursing, where what I can see, even this virtual operations, okay, the people do it. So it's, there is no patient. So at some stage where you can prepare the people for the practical things. But of course, it doesn't mean we can do everything. Even this augmented reality or extended reality applications, VR models with head mounted things where the people can get an experience of the operation theater, and even the getting the real practices in a kind of an environment. Remember the similar things we did few years ago, uh, the practicing I mean, they're providing the training for the Navy for the operation of the DORA. And when the LTT was in action, I mean, it was very difficult to train the Navy staff because of this, the risk there. And we created a simulation-based learning environment where the people can get a lot of good training. So then those people can quickly once they get into the kind of an environment, they don't need they will have a very short learning curve to get the real skill. So those things could be done, the skill development. It's a challenging, but that is, I don't want to say impossible, it is possible. One more question. There was sir, we have seen that in schools, many teachers still do not tend to use the technological resources to teach, and they mostly appreciate the traditional methods, but many students are far beyond the technological knowledge and skills of the teachers. In schools, this gap made many issues, especially in the online teaching. From where do we should start to bridge this gap? Yeah, this gap of the generation. This is what I say, the generation gap. I mean, I like to share sometimes ago, this was happened around 2009 and 10, under the World Bank project, the Ministry of Education got something called one laptop per child. This is an MIT project, but we got around 1,200 OLPC, it's known as OLPC machines, and we distributed very rural area because OLPC machines are kind of learning devices. They were kind of computing laptop machines with a difference. It's called the $100 PC. Concepts based on that is a 10,000 rupees was what was think, and not for the people in the even in the what I said, in the rich communities and the very poor families, we purposely gave it and see it. Then they didn't have the good teachers, even the schools, and they can start learning, and students become very collaborative and supportive. Yes, because what is the most important thing, once you prepare the environment, the students learning. This is what we call the learner centered. I mean, the teachers has to change their role. Sometimes it's I think I personally feel meaningless to criticize the innocent teachers if they don't know. They think, I mean, the best thing is to teach everything, and then they guide the students to the A to Z. No, they don't need. But this is where the teaching culture has to change. Once you put the environment, the teacher can learn from the students, but then they need to have a change in their mindset. I mean, this same thing happens in the university. I mean, I have learned a lot from my students. I mean, the ones what you really need to, you have to create the environment. They become more smarter, and they become a teaching assistants where you can learn lots of things. I mean, you can experiment there. So this teaching culture, I'm the teacher. I mean, there was a known phrase calling the teachers as the best learners. So that you can really put into the practice. So the bridging the gap can be done. Educating the people is the most important thing. And just create the environment and then facilitate, the rest will go in the right direction. That's what I feel.
Yes, anything can be taught in virtual reality, and getting the simulation, more medical students will have opportunity to perform the I mean real world surgeries. So that's a real hope in digital transformation. And like you said, digital transformation is not just transforming digitally, but also cultural transformation and attitudinal transformation. And there's a lot to that phrase. So with that thing, shall we conclude, or do we have more questions?